Hello and welcome to The Entrepreneurial Musician, a coaching service, podcast, and blog preparing today's musicians for tomorrow's realities. This is TEM233 titled Spotted Online. Quickly, I'd like to thank Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for TEM. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine, customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model Tuba Mouthpiece. You can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. First, a shout out to everyone who is a Patreon patron of the show. I just posted my latest TEM report, which there was a lot to unpack in there. I have successfully launched a whole bunch of stuff, and I basically gave. There was a lot of missteps along the way. I talk about the successes. I talk about my failures, how everything's going. It's a peek behind the curtain of my portfolio career, which I have received some feedback some people find very interesting and helpful. So anyway, that is available at patreon.com/TEM podcast. You can learn more about that. I've been starting the show lately with a shout out to some musicians, and this week is a shout out to my former band, Boston Brass. Just a couple of days ago, they performed for a live audience for the first time in 15 months in Joplin, Missouri, and it filled my heart with joy to see them doing their thing again. It's been just a brutal time for so many of us, financially, but also on top of the financial difficulties and how terrifying it all was, just the whole performing, the actual art was taken away as well. And so shout out to them for being able to get back with a live audience. They had smiles plastered all over their faces from all of the photos that I saw on social media. All right, Spotted Online. I always choose three things that I find online to share, to point out, and then to share my thoughts with you. The first one is a tweet from Ross Simmonds, who is he's at The Coolest Cool, and he is a marketer. And I do enjoy. We're all marketers, whether we want to be or not, and I learn a lot from him. But he also just is great for anybody who's creative. He's a really good follow. His tweet said, quote, "What shows up when someone Googles you is quickly becoming more important than your resume." I shouted yes when I saw that because I'm crazy, and I pounded that heart, and I thought I need to share this with my audience. I call it your digital paper trail. People who are old like me can relate to the whole paper trail thing, right? Well, you need to show us what you've done. And that is what Google rewards. Resumes tend to be a list of official, which I have here in quotes, achievements. And most of those rarely show that you've done any interesting work at all. Doesn't mean that you don't do any interesting work while accumulating the official achievements that go in a resume, but there's an awful lot that can go into even an impressive resume, if you will, that doesn't show that you've done any interesting or original work at all. And more nowadays, that's exactly what people are looking for, is someone who has done a lot of work, who has blazed their own trail, who has made their own map. You know, I've said that like a thousand times. And so Google results can't be gamed. That's the beautiful thing about them, is that, and there are some people who claim that they know how to, and they actually don't. But you just have to keep showing up over and over again over a prolonged period of time. That's the only way to get Google results to change, is to show up over and over again, and just day after day, month after month, year after year. So many music business classes in college take a big chunk of time teaching resumes and how to format a resume and what goes on a resume and what doesn't. Uh, this is a bad idea for a number of reasons. But first of all, a quick Google search can show you exactly how to format a resume in your specific field correctly. And I don't even just mean music. I mean, if you are a music educator, you can find an example quickly, or examples quickly, and you're going to find a lot of commonality. Or if you are a producer, I mean, it'll show you what to put in your resume and what not to put. That information is available to anyone with an internet connection. But beyond that, those classes ought to be teaching students about the importance of showing up in Google search results. And you don't accomplish that by doing well in school or by taking a bunch of online classes. You do that by putting your work out there over and over again. I know I've spoken about the time when I was on a search committee for a full-time faculty member at a former school that I was at, and I will tell you this: that there were way more people. I was tasked with finding 5 people who stuck out to me out of the 84, I believe, who applied, and there was like, I don't know, 25 of those 84 who had the resume to advance. So what do you think I did? I There was a couple that were clearly going to be in my 5 to bring to the committee to say, I want to learn more about this. But then numbers 3, 4, and 5, the difference between those and then the other 20 that made up the top 25, I Googled them. And when there were a couple of others who had done some really interesting things that I thought would directly apply to what we had built and were in the process of building there, but that stuff didn't leap out in a cover letter because it can't. And there's a good way to write a cover letter and a bad way. And it can't leap out of a resume, even though there's a good way to write a resume and a bad way. But these people had shown up over and over again. They did not just do one thing once that was important and then have that pop right to the surface when I started looking under the hood. So even if you're going the traditional route, and a lot of people go the traditional route and the portfolio career route at the same time in the music business, it is all about Google search results. And so uh, just understand that most of our educations focus on a lot of formal stuff that is becoming less relevant every single day. So just know that you need to just keep showing up and don't worry about the Google results in the short term. Just take regular actions that are going to make you stand out. And after some period of time, the Google search results are going to be your friend. Okay, the next tweet is by Dr. Julie Gurner, and her tweet reads, your actions reinforce your self-perception. Hesitancy leads to insecurity over time. Taking chances leads to confidence. Think about the person you're reinforcing and what you are telling yourself every day by what you do. The choices we make create us block by block. That's really great. I have heard a version of this message many times, many different versions, and it's always a good message to hear. But framing this one specifically around self perception is powerful. If you write a little every day, you will perceive yourself as a writer and will be much more likely to write again tomorrow. I am experiencing this, which is why I use this specific example myself in this group called Writing in Community, which is an Akimbo workshop, which was an organization that was started by Seth Godin. This is a writing community where, and I don't remember, I paid a few $100s to be a part of this. And I have committed to writing for 15 minutes a day for 6 straight months. And at the end of this, I'm actually going to have 3 different TEM themed books that are going to be for sale in the Kindle store. And I'm sure, sell them on Gumroad as well as PDFs. But this thing takes you from the beginning all the way through, including covers, back covers, blurbs, editing, formatting, all of it. But there is this community. It's awesome, by the way, to have a group of people. I have a cohort where there's like a few people in particular who I interact with almost every day. I comment on their writing. They comment on mine. They challenge me to show up. They challenge my writing to be better. But it's funny that the more that I write, I'm now like 2.5 months into this thing, and writing is a daily part of my life now. And so every day I'm perceiving myself more and more like a writer, and that's just by showing up. The next part of that tweet: hesitancy leads to insecurity over time. taking chances leads to confidence. This applies directly to playing music, but also the business side of music, right? There are two punctuation marks you can play any note or any phrase with, and they are either a question mark or an exclamation point. And the musicians that I've played with or that I've worked with as their teacher who default to question marks, boy, does hesitancy leads to insecurity all the time, because even when you play the right chord at the right time, then you're kind of like, but it's got a question mark, then you it does not fill you with security, because you know deep down that you didn't actually know. Possibly, this is funny, possibly the most common way that someone who's a complete stranger to me accesses my Hits Academy blog at andrewhits.com is by Googling the term strong and wrong, which is something that we used to say in Boston Brass all the time, which is, if you are going to make a mistake, make it big. Like the Boston Brass in Joplin the other night, if you're going to make a mistake, it should be heard all across Joplin, Missouri, which is not a super small town. So it's all about taking chances, which leads to confidence, because when those start paying out, then you, again, it's like this momentum that you gain on any number of fronts. The next part, the last part of her tweet: think about the person you're reinforcing and what you are telling yourself every day by what you do. The choices we make create us, block by block. In the first tweet from this episode, at the coolest cool said, we are building our presence in the world through regularly contributing and allowing that to fuel our Google search results. In this tweet, we are building ourselves block by block, with those blocks being our actions and everything that they reinforce. Both are about showing up in an intentional way over and over again, over time. And then the last one is a quick one of those illustrated YouTube videos. And this one is about mindset. The book Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck is one of the most important books I've ever read. I always say that it made me a better performer, made me a better teacher, it made me a better entrepreneur, husband, father, literally everything. That sounds like hyperbole, but it's not. This video is a 2-minute overview of the main points in that book. I would beg you to read Dr. Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, if you haven't read it. But this video was a really great reminder to me of all the things that I learned in that book. I've also been ending each episode with a quote lately, and this one is a doozy. This is from Glenn Gould, the incredible Canadian pianist. He said, quote, "Within every creative person, there is an inventor at odds with a museum curator. And most of the startling things that happen musically are the result of some momentary gain by one at the expense of the other." I've been thinking about that quote for the last 48 hours since I first read it. That's pretty awesome. Thank you to everyone for listening, subscribing, leaving a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get TEM, and simply for your attention, the most valuable commodity any of us have to give. TEM is produced by Will Houchin and is a part of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. The theme music for TEM is played by Ben Barron, Rich Kelly, Daniel Lapel, and myself, Andrew Hitz. For show notes, the TEM blog, and to learn more about TEM coaching, please visit our new website, tem.fm. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. And that's going to do it for another episode of The Entrepreneurial Musician.